It's on the side of the. Rosh Hashanah begins today. And Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year. The biblical name for this holiday is Yom Teruah, which is actually the day of shouting and laughing. It is the first of the Jewish high holy days, the days of awe. As specified in Leviticus, Rosh Hashanah customs include sounding the shofar, a cleaned out ram's horn, as prescribed in the Torah, following the prescription of the Hebrew Bible to raise a noise. On Yom Teruah, its rabbinical customs include attending synagogue, or for us it's church, and reciting a special liturgy about Teshuvah, as well as enjoying festival meals. Eating symbolic foods is now tradition, such as apples dipped in honey, hoping to evoke a very sweet new year. So Howard has so kindly offered to blow the shofar for us today. So this is the opening of the service. Our centering thought comes from the Reverend Victoria Stafford. Covenant is a promise to myself about the kind of person I want to be, the kind of life I need to have, together with other people and other living things. We now begin. Good morning. I'm Pakita Bass. I'm a member of our parish committee, and I want to welcome everyone to First Church this morning and to our community. So a few announcements and focusing. The parish committee would like all of us congregants at First Church to consider ourselves members of the membership committee. And this year to wear that hat, so that we can welcome new folks to our community and spread the vision and mission of our church further. So we will continue this theme throughout the year, that welcoming your ideas, your contributions, and your messaging to your own networking communities. Two announcements for today. The new, and I like to call it new-ish, to UU class meets today. So if you are new to Unitarian Universalism, please join us at noon today, as well as October 9th and 16th. We'll be meeting with Rali around noon. Also, we need photos of our families and members. There's an update on the date, so please sign up. The website is in the information for signing up is in the program, but please pay attention. The dates are actually October 24th and 25th. for the camera, for the pictures. We'd like to welcome Carol Dixon to come on up, and then Jeff Tegnell will follow Carol for some additional announcements. Thank you and welcome.
Good morning, I'm Carol Dixon, and this is Reba, my granddaughter. And we're here to make an announcement from the Dedham Branch Alliance. Next Sunday, we have the pleasure of honoring 6 fabulous UU women, Judy Barrington, Janet Hurwitz, Becky Martin, Marianne Osborne, Joe Maslocki, and Susan White. And we're finally getting the Alliance together after 3 years now, maybe? Anyway, we're having a lunch and annual meeting and Clara Barton celebration next Sunday in the Parish House. The lunch starts at 12:30. All First Church women are invited. I've reached out to some of you, but not all. So if you'd like to come, let me know by Tuesday. That would be fabulous. And I know Sunday's a busy day, so we're doing our Clara Barton around 1:45 if you want to pop in for that. And congratulate these women, and we will have cake. So if you're interested in coming, please let me know. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeff Tegnell, and I'm one of the 3 deacons here. But I want to talk to you about a wonderful concert that we had on Friday night. Let me thank Johnny Pape and the Dedham School of Music's Wilson Mountain Skyline Ramblers for their wonderful performances at our first Friday Folk Coffee House on September 23rd. Fantastic performance. We're hoping, I've been saying the history of our church, and music has always played a central role in our services, but also our services to the town, bringing people in to enjoy music. We used to have organ vespers on Fridays and Sundays, and the whole idea was to provide, beautiful musical culture for our neighbors and friends. Let me, talk a little bit about who supported the effort on Friday. Thank you to the folks who worked there: Mary Lynn Davis, Carol Dixon Hutton, Emily Peliquin, Noreen King, Julia Getchett, Kathy Widger, Howard Ostroff, and Linnea Barson volunteered their time to sell tickets and ush and to provide refreshments. Many other congregants provided yummy desserts for our refreshment tables. Proceeds from this concert are donated to First Church and to Dedham Civic Pride. Please note in your calendars, our next Friday Folk Coffee House will be on October 14th, and more to come about this event soon. I'm also have been constituted to, I'm not a junior worship associate, but you can tell, I just love the history of our church. I'm so fascinated by it, and I spent the last half year or so. You've really asked me to investigate, the portraits of the ministers. We have portraits of the ministers in here. We're talking on a parish committee about, the representations within our church. We've also found 15 portraits of former ministers in the parish house. It was pretty fascinating. So Rali asked me to research the lives of some of our ministers, and I've done 13 so far. And the kids are going to be sharing little synopses of these longer narratives, which we hope sooner or later to put on our website as part of our history with JPEGs of the portraits. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about our founding minister, who we don't have a picture of, unfortunately, but we actually know a lot about him. It's Reverend John Allin. He was the first minister of this church. The Allin Church is named after him because at that time we were one church, and he was also, therefore, also their first minister. Allin was born in Colby, Norfolk, England in 1596. He was the eighth of 15 children. He studied and achieved both his bachelor and master's degree at Christ Church and the University of Cambridge in England. He was minister in England when his brand of sweet Christian love came under persecution. He escaped England in the disguise with a band of English Puritans and arrived in Dedham in 1636. He began teaching and preaching to the people in the New World. After the church was founded in 1638, Allin was given 30 acres of land in exchange for his preaching and teaching. His yearly salary was paid in chickens and cows and firewood. In his time as minister, he was known to be kind and scholarly presence in the town, and he helped form the halfway covenant with other Puritan ministers, which allowed kids who were being born into families in this town to join the church. So super important. He also ministered to the Native Americans at the time, attempting to provide them with his version of the Word of God. And he started the first free public school on these grounds. Reverend John Allin served First Church until 1671, the year of his death. There'll be more to come.
In the quiet and the stillness of the morning, in the quiet and the stillness of the day, in this quiet holy place, I find blessed peace within. In the quiet and the stillness of the morning.
I light our chalice this morning and all of our candles for the light that our parish brings into this world and the light that each of you bring into the world.
Yes, sparking but not lighting. We're having a lot of trouble with lighting our chalices lately. And I light our green sanctuary candle for all the ways we strive to be a more sustainable congregation.
Our opening words this morning are from the Grave Hymn by James Luther Adams. I call that church free. I call that church free, which enters into covenant with the ultimate source of existence. That sustaining and transforming power not made with human hands. It binds together families and generations protecting against the idolatry of any human claim to absolute truth or authority. This covenant is the charter and responsibility and joy of worship in the face of death as well as life. I call that church free, which brings individuals into a caring, trusting fellowship that protects and nourishes their integrity and spiritual freedom, that yearns to belong to the Church Universal. It is open to insight and conscience from every source. It bursts through rigid tradition, giving rise to new and living language, to new and broader fellowship. It is a pilgrim church, a servant church on an adventure of the Spirit. The goal is the prophethood and priesthood of all believers, the one for the liberty of prophesying, the other for the ministry of healing. It aims to find unity in diversity under the promptings of the Spirit that bloweth where it listeth and maketh all things new. Please stand as you are willing and able and join us in singing hymn number 295 in the gray hymnal, 295, sing out praises for the Lord.
Please remain standing and say with me the unison affirmation as is printed in your order of worship. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, to serve humanity in love is our covenant with each other and with God. Please be seated. An offering to support and sustain the ministries of this church will now be given and gratefully received. I want to invite our children forward for our intergenerational message. And Liza, will you also read with Kita and I?
Very dapper today, Simon.
Thank you.
Simon, you look so dapper, I'm going to ask you to be our line leader. Okay?
By the way, I also found an egg.
Oh, very good. That's, we celebrate Easter all year round. And congratulations. It's yours. It's yours. It belongs to you.
The candy's probably
You have to
expired,
wait
so-
until your parents say you can unwrap it, though. Okay? Let's bring the sound into our heart and our minds and our spirit so we can open our listening ears. To my ears. Well, we have a intergenerational message for you that the junior worship associates were supposed to read, but we have a lot of shy junior worship associates. So before we get started, I want to talk about the best way to overcome shyness. And I learned this from my wife because when Jenny was little, do you mind me telling this story? When she was really, really shy, and her mother was an emergency room nurse, and she, told her, if you just pretend not to be shy, is that what it was? Or just pretend to be confident? Pretend not to be shy. Just play a game, just pretend you're not shy. And Jenny's the most confident person I've ever met. So I think that it works. So I just want to encourage our junior worship associates to try to remember that we're a loving, caring audience and nobody's going to throw things at you, right? Or make fun of you or make faces at you. It hasn't happened in 16 years here for me. So, all right, or almost 16. Let's see. Why don't I be the third person? You want to be, do you care? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3? Okay. All right, we can stand here so the kids. This is what church was like in 1638. It's a conversation.
Did you know that this church was founded in 1638? No way, that is over 380 years ago. The whole country was founded in 1776, and that was only 246 years ago.
Well, the first settlers landed on the river in Dedham, just down the street at the quay, just down this street in 1636, and it took them 2 years to build and organize a church. And then build a church exactly 138 years before the Declaration of Independence was written.
Did it look like this?
No,
It must have taken them more than 2 years to build this church.
the church that was built in 1638 was much smaller and it had box pews.
What are box pews? Were the people sitting in boxes? Wait, this I know. They were rectangular pews with doors on them, and families would bring things with them like coals in a metal box to keep them warm.
They also had wood stoves that helped keep them warm in the winter.
Well, right now we don't have any heat. A wood-burning stove would kind of be nice. Yeah, but who would fill the fireplace during the services?
Probably the teenagers.
I know that services lasted almost the whole day back then, and the ministers preached only from the Bible. Wow, they must have gotten hungry.
Well, the ministers' sermons must have been much longer than mine.
And I'm pretty sure the ministers were more focused on how to follow the footsteps of Jesus and how to avoid the wages of hell.
I wonder if they had a good coffee hour.
I don't know, but they did believe in eating meals together, and the Puritans wanted to live closer to the ways that Jesus and the disciples lived.
Are Puritans and Pilgrims the same thing?
Not exactly. Both Puritans and Pilgrims followed the teachings of John Calvin, who believed that only some people are good and deserve God's love. But the Pilgrims wanted to separate from the Church of England because they didn't believe in the Anglican Church, and they landed on Plymouth Rock in around 1608. The Puritans came years later, and they wanted to change the Anglican Church, not separate from it.
So the Puritans came to the New World almost 30 years later. And that's when they landed in Dedham with the Reverend John Allin in 1636.
Oh, so our church was very different in 1638 when John Allin was the minister. The services were longer, the pews were tall and closed in, and you had to bring your own heat. And you would eat a meal with your friends after church.
Pretty much. Our church has changed a lot in 384 years.
I wonder, what will it be like in 384 more years?
That would be the year 2406. It's hard to imagine. Maybe that is something you guys can think about. What do you want the church to be like in 2406?
And you can think about that while we sing you to your classes. And Simon, you're our line leader. We will now enter into a time of prayer or meditation, as is your practice, and we'll begin by ringing the bell. Let us be grateful for all the silences in our lives, for with them we may more completely experience sound. Our first reading is an excerpt from a speech made by the Reverend Sue Phillips at the 2015 General Assembly. Believing that congregational polity is primarily concerned with supporting and protecting individual voices is nothing less than heresy. Equating congregational polity with autonomy undermines the interconnectedness, erodes our covenant, and endangers our communities. It is flat out ahistorical, not to mention wrong. Participation in our congregations and communities is voluntary, in the sense that it is not strictly required by any external authority. But are we not responsible to the call to manifest the interdependent web of co-creating beloved community? Does our faith not require us to help increase the sum of love and justice in the world? Our faith puts claims on us, moral and ethical. And for some of us, theological duty claims us and compels us because we claim and are claimed by our faith. Participation in Unitarian Universalist community is much richer than the notion of voluntary participation conveys.
Words and deeds of those before us, we are here to keep us strong. Lend our voices in the chorus of creation's living song. Courage bids us lift our eyes upward to the shining skies. Up goes the song. Up goes the song. Up goes the song. Loyal guides in love and duty, loyal sons, lead us with the trusted light. Blessed are they whose inward beauty, blessed are they, the path of truth and light. Honor is their earthly prize. By their work we realize faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. We have shared. Truth has made us freedom and truth. And the Spirit's gracious power. Spirit of grace. Lord, let your freedom for right from path before us, Lord. Right is the path. For pilgrims now we ride. Life calls us on. 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 Oh yes, life calls us on. Oh yes, life calls us on. Oh yes, life calls us on.
Our second reading this morning is from The Unitarian Controversy and Its Puritan Roots by Alice Blair Wesley, Peter Hughes, and Frank Carpenter. During the Great Migration of the 1630s, some 20,000 English Puritans settled in New England and established independent parish or neighborhood churches. They practiced congregational polity, that form of church governance in which members of the local church are united on an equal footing, not by assent to a creed, but by entering the covenant. That is, by signing a promise. Each church wrote its own covenant. Some were long. Most were very short. The covenant of the Salem Church, written in 1629, is a good example. We covenant with the Lord and with one with another, and do bind ourselves in the presence of God to walk together in all his ways, according as he is pleased to reveal himself unto us in his blessed word of truth. The revolutionary thrust of the Puritan covenant and polity is given voice especially in two words, unto us. This is because the issue of the Puritan mind and heart was contained in a set of closely related questions. Where is authentically commanding religious authority to be found? How is it known? And what are the conditions of its appearing unto us? The Puritans' answer to those questions found expression in the covenant of the local church. They granted ultimate religious authority solely to that convincing power of truth evident in the understandings reached and tested over time by a body of loving individuals, mutually pledged faithfully to seek and to heed truth together in ongoing community, so long as their earthly life should last. Therefore, the Puritans rejected, on deeply held theological principle, the authority of bishops or any ecclesiastical or civil body politic whatsoever other than the local church. Each church elected and ordained its own officers, ministerial and lay. So constituted, all their churches together formed the standing order of the New England Way, community of independent churches, each governed solely by the decision of its own members, yet in fellowship with all other churches so constituted. Please stand as you are willing and able and sing with us hymn number 113 in the gray hymnal, Where is Our Holy Church?
much our church has changed since the Reverend John Allen was our minister, and since we were one church, with the Allin Congregational Church had not yet split from this community as they did in 1818. In 1638, people came to church for the sweet Christian love that the Reverend John Allen offered. Puritans rejected Catholic rituals and that the Anglican Church had retained. And because they saw such rituals as drawing them away from the genuine messages of the scriptures. How many of you left other faith traditions because you thought the practices of preaching or even the people of the church kept you feeling far away from, or rather than close to, the love and fellowship you wanted in your life? I know that I started going to a Unitarian Universalist church in Portland, Maine, because I did not feel that the love of neighbors as thyself in the Methodist church in which I was raised. I felt the Methodist prayers of confession that asked me to say something akin to, I'm unworthy, and I'm so unworthy unless God makes me worthy. And their descriptions of sin were too confining and unloving for me. I know not everyone that went to the Methodist church I grew up in felt this way. Just last night I was at a jazz concert at my father's church, and I saw people I had known my entire life. And he still goes to that church. But in my 20s, I found the Unitarian Universalist Church and its 7 principles and purposes more affirming for the life that I wanted to live. At 25, after a very unfulfilling funeral for my mother at the Methodist Church, Jesse Lee United Methodist Memorial Church in Ridgefield, Connecticut, I cast aside creedal religion of my childhood and joined the UU Church. Being a non-creedal and non-doctrinal church means that we do not ask for any litmus test of belief. We do not draw uncrossable lines between those who are accepted into this community and those who are not. But there is more to being a UU than what we reject. To begin, our congregational system, which gives members not religious leaders, not me standing in this pulpit, not UUA on 24 Farnsworth Street authority, but you, the congregation, has all the authority. It's the kind of grassroots democracy that I believe in. Our congregational polity comes directly from the 1648 Cambridge platform that the Reverend John Allen helped to craft. The Cambridge platform was written by New England Puritans to outline the governance of our church, and we continue to follow that governance today. Instead of singling out a pope or bishops as saints, the Puritans made the proprietors of the pews the saints. At that time, people bought their pews, but now it's translated to the people who would sign the membership book and attend church. This grassroots and democratic polity departed dramatically from the Anglican hierarchies and the Presbyterian hierarchies of the day. In 1646, the Anglican bishops of England outlined the Calvinist theology of predestination in a document called the Westminster Confession of Faith. It was in response to this document that the radical New England Puritans outlined the Cambridge platform. The authors of the Westminster Confession of Faith must have thought the Cambridge platform was schmaltzy and insignificant by comparison. For the Puritans, though, the Cambridge platform was a profound articulation of how their faith tradition would interact in this new world, and led to the democracy that is at the heart of congregational polity today in our church and the church across the street and many Baptist churches. Our 6th and 7th UU principles emerge directly from this new congregational form of government. The 6th principle is the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in the society at large. The 7th is the goal of the world community with peace and liberty and justice for all. In these, the Puritans' intentional departure from the Westminster Confession is clear. The Halfway Covenant was the next significant organizing covenant that the Reverend John Allin participated in. Allin recognized that the children of the original settlers were living in relative comfort compared to their parents, and their parents and they were living in relative ease. So they weren't having profound conversion experiences that their parents had had. You see, their parents had crossed the Atlantic Ocean through storms and disease and great winds and great waves to come to the Dedham shores. And through those waves and storms, they felt the presence of God in their life. And they could attest to that in many ways, and how God was in their life. They could talk about that in church. But their children, who lived in New England without any persecution, could not. The Reverend John Allin met with other New England Puritan ministers in 1657 to address the concern of declining membership. Many of the Puritan clergy felt that the children were just pipsqueaks who did not deserve the serious sacraments of the church. After 6 years of long and arduous debates about who deserved the sacraments, in 1662, the Congregational Synod, which is where the ministers gathered to make decisions of the church, agreed that if those children who did not have conversion experiences would covenant to live with the teachings of Jesus, they would be accepted in the church. So they had to say a covenant very similar to what we still say each week in church today. While the Halfway Covenant of 1662 did not ask for a profession of faith, it did ask for a profession of faith or covenant, it was still creedless. You could attend church without having that. The Halfway Covenant is also the first evidence that our church respects the inherent worth and dignity of every person, which is our first principle. While it did not stretch as far as respecting Indigenous people in the Massachusetts Bay Colony, the idea that everyone deserves God's love was even more radical in 1648 than it remains in some places today. Over his years as our minister, the Reverend John Allin dealt with the changing needs of generations, and it was evidence that even this early church believed that, at least in part, in our second and third principles, which are justice, equity, and compassion in human relationships, and acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Shockingly, justice, equity, and compassion in our human relationships have not been and are not the focus of all faith traditions. Perhaps many of you are here precisely because Unitarian Universalism strives to build communities based on and working towards justice, equity, and compassion. For us to achieve this, we must each make a promise to ourselves and to each other to be in an ever-evolving relationship with each other. Acceptance of one another and encouragement for spiritual growth in our congregation means that we understand that faith is not a static thing. It's not an endpoint, but an ever-evolving process. You give a free pulpit to me as your minister in covenant in order to ensure the fourth principle, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. When the religious community lends the pulpit, it does so with the knowledge that the speaker, me, is free to present from my personal knowledge and what I believe, even if it differs from what you believe. I'm responsible for respecting your search for truth and meaning in the pews. But you have a free pew, too. You have the free pew affirms that the UU Church does not dictate any belief. Anything I say here, you can question, you can search and find out what was wrong, you can tell me about it, you can tell everyone else about it. The free pew requires you to respect the free and responsible search for truth and meaning for yourself and for those sitting next to you. And actually for everyone, even the people who go to the Catholic Church or I don't know, whatever church, or no church at all. Yet as the Reverend Sue Phillips stated, ours is not an individual religious tradition. The final principle and purpose adopted at the 1969 General Assembly, long after John Allin was our minister, long after this Dedham decision, accepted the respect and dignity of interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part as the final principle. Our search for truth and meaning is not for us alone. All of our principles support each individual's spiritual growth while leading us into an interconnectedness of all life. So when the parish committee asks us to join the membership committee, what they're really saying is, we're all connected. And if we want to believe in the life of this church, we are all part of bringing the joy and the beauty and the love that this church tries to be into the bigger world. And if we do that, this might be the first step in defining us in 2023 and in all the years to come. May it be so. Prophetic church, your future waits, your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love and proclaim the truth that sets us free. Bring this light into your hearts and minds and spirits and share it with the world.
Let our heart sing through